Let's take some time to talk about growth challenges. So, when it comes to growth challenges, there's typically three buckets over here: either lack of results, lack of motivation, or this feeling that you want to change direction. So, let's talk about each one of them. First of all, with lack of results, you need to set expectations that your first podcast effort, your first 10 episodes really, are almost like a benchmark for you against yourself. It's kind of like first day in the gym or first 10 days in the gym. Don't expect fireworks from day one. Rather, make it a point to always beat your personal best week in and week out, month in and month out. And so, depending on what's most important to your business, you could determine what are the metrics that make the most sense, whether it's purely the number of downloads or perhaps it's overall traffic as a result of the podcast, or maybe it's overall leads. Whatever the metric or combination of metrics is, don't compare yourself with anything external, or definitely not with people who have been doing this for years. Compare this with yourself last month and take note of the things that are working so that you can keep doing more of what works. And whenever things don't work, it's almost an invitation for you to be experimental and to run different experiments to see what are the things that can work better in this case. Examples of experiments here could be things like experimenting with the different types of guests that you are bringing, or the specific topics, or the way that you repurpose the clips, or perhaps the way you release the content and the cadence of it. All of these are different variables that you can test for to determine a winning formula for your specific brand. The next thing then is lack of motivation. Sometimes midway through the podcast, perhaps a little bit related to like lack of results, you might feel like, you know what, I'm not sure if I want to keep doing this. And this is a very common feeling, especially when you're primed to expect that you're going to be getting results and you're seeing all these other podcasts like blow up around you and you're wondering, why is this happening to you? Why are you losing motivation to continue? And one helpful thought that has helped me personally and a lot of the brands that we work with is just reminding yourself that you can't lose. Even if people don't watch the full length episodes the day you drop it, realize that you can still create so much evergreen content. As you've heard me say several times at this stage in the course, you can create so much evergreen content and anticipate that they're going to watch some of that short form content. And if not now, then perhaps in the near future or even in the midterm, you'll find that this content continues to drive a lot of value for new and existing audiences alike. You just need to change your definition of what success is, and you need to have a lot of patience. And in case you're thinking of switching strategies, remind yourself that whatever strategy you pick, there's always going to be a hump at the start. Once you get over that hump, you'll start to see a lot more results from your episodes and the subsequent content, and that in turn will almost start to motivate you more, because you realize that the more you invest in recording, the more evergreen business assets you're creating out the other end. And last but not least is changing direction. Just because you're not seeing results doesn't mean that you should give up, but rather you can decide, as we have spoken about briefly before, you can decide if you want to make some simple changes in the current podcast format that you have, or potentially if you're already 10 plus episodes in and you still have reason to believe that there's something that needs to be changed over here, you can make a different change in direction. But the key thing is to commit first. Commit to at least 10 episodes, as mentioned. And from there, you'll have enough data to at least determine whether it makes sense to continue with that podcast or to pivot. And more often than not, the answer is always to continue with that same show format, because the more data that you have, the more insight you will develop. And more often than not, you'll find that it's not necessarily like a massive change that you need to make, as much as it is a few variable tweaks, as we have been discussing so far.